Can't film down at the barnyard right now because my roosters will not shut up. So we're up here at the goat pasture, and you might hear them in the background a little bit in this video. I hope that you are all doing well. It's not uncommon for me to take like a month off of YouTube because there's a lot of different things that I do, and the farm definitely takes a lot of my time, and I'm also a freelance designer, so it's not uncommon for me to take time off, but in this case it actually wasn't intentional. For the majority of July, about 3 straight weeks, I was very, very sick. I actually tried filming this already, and I had my notebook out with all of my dates written down and all of the symptoms that I was having, and I found myself honestly getting a lot of anxiety, rehashing all of the things that I've had to go through. I am going to take you through how it started, all of the symptoms that I had, all of the tests that I had done, and I'm going to try to explain what I think it is, because as of right now, there has never been a definitive diagnosis. I am getting better. I've been on an antibiotic for 2 weeks. Today is actually the last day for it. Let's back up, and I'll start from the beginning. So during filming my last video, which went up I think the first week-ish of July, I was feeling really fatigued during filming that video. I also noticed that one of my eyelids was like drooping, and I thought maybe I was just tired. I didn't really know why it was doing that, and I actually cut out a lot of that video because I was like, why the heck do I look like this? That's not normal for me. I was just feeling really sweaty, I was feeling really tired, and I was just chalking up to I was just having like a day, because everybody has days where they just feel tired. The next day I got up, I was still feeling a little bit fatigued, and it was just really weird, but I'm the type of person that just tries to push through things, especially when they're minimal like that. So I went ahead and I went to my favorite coffee shop. That's where I usually edit most of my videos. Not all the time, but like it's just easier for me to get out of the house to film or to edit my videos, because I'm kind of away from all of my normal distractions. Like my dogs and my cat and all of my animals are constantly begging for my attention. So it's just easier for me to go to a coffee shop to get work done when I need to get it done quickly. And all throughout the day, I was just still feeling really fatigued, and it was just really weird because I started getting a bit of a headache in the back of my head, and my initial thought was, oh great, I'm getting a migraine. I'm not a stranger to migraines. I get one really bad migraine probably every 2 to 3 months, I would say. And usually what I do when that happens is I take Tylenol Severe and I go to bed and I just sleep it off. And usually within a day or two, I'm fine again. So I know what migraines feel like. This one just kind of felt kind of weird, but I still thought maybe it was just a migraine. I got home and I was just feeling so fatigued, and I just got home after uploading the video and I went basically to bed, just like trying to like sleep it off a little bit. The next day is when I started feeling things weren't quite right, because I got up and my head was still really hurting, and my arms, there was something really weird happening with both of my arms, where it hurt to pick up even the tiniest thing. Like my cell phone here, I would go to pick it up and it would hurt my entire arm. It just felt like my arms were gonna rip off. The headache was a little bit worse, and at that point I'm getting a little bit nervous because I'm like, I don't know why I'm feeling this way, but I just, again, was like, I've got some sort of weird bug. I did have in the back of my mind, well, maybe I have COVID. I've had COVID twice already, and I was just like, great, like if I have it a third time, like I know my body can take care of it, it just sucks. So I was thinking possibly COVID, but I was thinking it's really weird how like my arms are just, it's centralized in my arms. That's really weird to me. That night, the headache was getting a lot worse, and I felt really hot. So I took my temperature and I had a fever of 99.8, which isn't like a huge fever or anything, but at that point I'm thinking, I think I have COVID. Like, I think it's like doing something different this time, and I think I have COVID. That was my first thought. The next day I get up and I'm feeling so bad. The headache is burning, and now I have something that is concerning to me. I have a headache, burning sensation, and I can't move my head either way, and I can't move it up or down. My neck is extremely stiff, and my shoulders and my back are really sore. It's like the body aches moved from my arms to kind of the rest of my body a little bit. It wasn't so bad like my torso down. I could still walk around and everything, but I had an extremely stiff head and neck, and the headache was worse. And my fever was doing this thing where it would be fine, but then it would spike a little bit, and then it would go back down, and then it would spike a little bit again. I went to urgent care, and I was explaining all of my symptoms, and she thought, well, maybe you have mono. I was actually concerned for meningitis, and I'm like, well, if I have meningitis, like something that bad, like I want to make sure that I'm gonna nip it in the bud. But she said she didn't think I had meningitis because my fever would be higher, even though it had reached 100 that day already. She thought that, it would be higher if it was meningitis. So she tested me for mono and a slew of other things. She did a full panel blood test and like a whole bunch of other things. And I didn't have mono, and everything actually came back fine. Everything looked great. I went home, and it didn't get better, really. The Tylenol was really not kicking it the way it would normally kick migraine. And I think the reason was because I was unable to like really go to sleep. It was really difficult for me to like lay down and get comfortable with the burning sensation in the back of my head. So I would take Tylenol, and the symptoms would lessen just a little bit, but I was unable to sleep properly. And so I tried to treat the symptoms, and it really didn't get better. The next day I get up and I'm feeling the same, and I was starting to feel a little bit helpless because like nothing was really working. So I went ahead and made a same-day appointment with my PCP, which was kind of frustrating because my PCP was still an hour away where we used to live. So I had to drive, and I was feeling really like sweaty, just really tired, really like the body aches had spread throughout my whole body at that point. So I was just feeling not good. It was just not a good time. So I went to my PCP, and she essentially told me the exact same thing. And while I was there, I had requested to be tested for Lyme disease because I started thinking more and more about tick-borne illnesses, and even though I didn't think at the time that it was that, I wanted to be tested for it anyway. And again, my PCP told me go home and treat the symptoms, and she said try ibuprofen because that's actually better for... I don't actually know what she said. She thought that ibuprofen was better somehow. The ibuprofen actually didn't help very much though. The Tylenol Severe helped a little bit more. But I did go ahead and try the ibuprofen at home. It just wasn't really taking care of the pain that I was feeling, and I was starting to have a lot of sleepless nights where just my head was killing me, essentially. It just felt like it was on fire, and I still couldn't really turn my head either way, and I had a really stiff neck, and at times it's like the pain would flare up, my fever would flare up, and I would just be in so much pain. So I finally got my Lyme disease test results back, and they were negative. And so then I was feeling like stuck because I'm like, nobody can tell me what this is, and it just seems to be getting worse, and I don't know how to treat it. And I've never experienced an illness where it attacks, a stiff head and neck, and the fever just kept spiking up, and then it would go down, and then it would spike up. And I started to have sessions where I would continuously tremble and shake. and my whole body would just sweat profusely if I put a blanket on, and I would get super duper hot, but then if I took the blanket off, I would chill so much and I would start shivering uncontrollably. And I specifically remember one night where I literally shivered all night long and I couldn't stop, and I didn't sleep that night. I was just trembling all night long, and the pain in my head was so great, and I didn't know what to do about it. A couple days past the weekend got here, and I tried to take Tylenol and ibuprofen kind of close together, which probably wasn't a good idea on my part, and that night I got sick, and I was up all night sick. So whether it was the illness causing me to be sick or just too many medications on an empty stomach, which that's another thing that I forgot to mention, it started to get so bad that I didn't want to eat anything. I actually almost stopped eating completely, and all I could have was like maybe 5 saltines in a day. Applesauce, I could handle just like maybe a fourth of a cup of applesauce, and strawberries were, that weirdly enough, strawberries were something that I could eat, but I could only eat like maybe 1 or 2 at a time. But I almost completely stopped eating, and that's like basically all I was having is like maybe 5 crackers and a strawberry or 2 a day. So I started losing weight. I wasn't getting any nutrition, and I just felt like super nauseous, and I didn't know what to do. I was trying to force liquids down me. I was drinking Gatorade, and I was trying my best to eat something every day, even though I really didn't want to, and I ended up losing 10 pounds over the course of like 5 to 7 days. A couple of days after I went to my PCP, it got to the point where my fever was starting to spike almost at 103. And it would come on all at once. So like I would actually be feeling like I could handle it, and then all of a sudden my fever would spike and I would start trembling, and it would feel so bad and unbearable. I went to the emergency room because I just couldn't handle it anymore. I had a stiff head and neck. There was an intense headache happening in my head. I thought my eyes were going to pop out of my head. That's how bad it hurt. And the burning in the back of my head, and primarily the right side of my head, was beginning to become quite unbearable. And I've never felt that much pain with a headache, and it was just really, really bad. The trembling was uncontrollable, and I was feeling really helpless. So we went to the emergency room. Jameson took me to the emergency room, and they again ran a plethora of different tests on me. They couldn't figure out what was wrong, and eventually the doctor did a spinal tap on me, so a lumbar puncture. Wouldn't recommend. It was not enjoyable at all. But they did a lumbar puncture on me to test for meningitis, and it actually came back fine. So I knew at that point that it wasn't meningitis. They also tested me for COVID with a couple of different tests, and that came back negative. I had actually done a home test a couple of days before that, and it was also negative. They tested me for a couple of different types of influenza. Those came back negative, and they said they didn't know. They said, we were not sure, but he prescribed me a migraine medication. And not gonna lie, it really, really frustrated me because I know what a migraine is. I told you guys that. But he prescribed me some migraine medication, and I was thinking in my head at this point, I'm like, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe this is a really bad migraine that just won't go away. But it still didn't explain all of the symptoms that I was having. So I don't know. I went home, and when I started feeling the pain start to flare up, I took one of the migraine meds, and it did absolutely nothing. So at that point, I'm thinking, I don't know what to do. I've been to urgent care. I've been to my PCP. I've been to the emergency room. I've had all of these tests done, and nobody can tell me what's going on, and nobody can relieve my symptoms. And I literally felt like I was living in a hell on earth. I just felt like I wanted to die. And I've never felt so much pain from an illness before that I've said that. Not with COVID, not with anything. It was a lot of pain for a long, long time, and I didn't know what to do anymore, and I felt super helpless because no doctor knew what I had either. Sorry, I had to go change my battery. Like I said, this is a long story trying to recap a month for you guys. There was one morning I distinctly remember feeling so much pain from whatever this was that I felt like I was gonna pass out. And I went out to do morning chores. I'm a very independent person. I should have known that I needed to ask for Jameson's help this morning. And I went out to the barn. You guys, if you've seen our property, it's a little bit of a walk down a hill. I was walking so slow, and I felt the entire time like I was getting ready to pass out. I couldn't lift anything, and I did the absolute bare minimum with the animals, and I came back to the house. And I'm honestly surprised, like looking back, I'm honestly surprised that I made it back, because the pain was so intense, and the feeling of getting ready to pass out was so intense. Somehow I did it, and somehow I got back up the hill and got back in the house. And from then on, I kind of stayed in the house, and I couldn't take care of the animals. I couldn't go outside. Jameson had to do it all for me, and he did a great job. My husband works a full-time job. He was caring for the farm the entire time I was sick, and he was also doing all of the housework, so all the laundry, all the dishes, all of that. He was trying to make food. I just couldn't eat it. I was just feeling so bad. So like I said, I was starting to feel really helpless, and I didn't know what to do. So I don't know if I was just like starting to get crazy, or if I was, trying to do. I've been doing a lot of like natural health stuff for my goats, so I think I was just in the mindset of, let's try to tackle this holistically. Got some essential oils and oregano oil tincture because I wanted to try it. I mean, there was no harm in trying. I took some of the oregano oil tincture. The essential oils were just simply for me to like massage, just to try to massage it into my head, trying to just get some relief, trying to relax maybe. I don't know. Maybe I was just thinking I needed therapy. I don't know. But I did take the oregano oil tincture for a couple of days. The funny thing is, looking back, I actually started feeling a little bit of relief a couple of days after I did the oregano oil, but I didn't really think anything of it at the time. Oregano oil can act as a very powerful natural antibiotic for different types of things. It's not a cure-all, but it can definitely help with certain things. But like I said, I did stop taking it because I just couldn't handle the taste of it. It started like kind of just burning my throat a little bit, so I just couldn't really stand it anymore. Even diluted, it was difficult to take it. And they make them in pill form as well, but I actually, for some reason, I just didn't think to continue taking it in the pill form, so I just kind of stopped. Several days pass, and my stiff head and neck came back. It did go away just a little bit for several days, and then it came back. And one day I was feeling okay, but I started getting like a stabbing pain in my head. Like it felt like a stabbing pain, and then also my chest, I would get a stabbing pain in my chest. And I had started doing something where every time I would open my mouth, either to talk or to try to eat something, I would have a non-productive cough because I would kind of lose my breath. And so that was concerning. I didn't really know what that was about. But the headache got really, really intense one day. And I had another sleepless night. I can't even tell you guys how many sleepless nights I had during this thing, because it was a lot, and it was just the pain that would just keep me up, and nothing would relieve it. I'd been doing a lot of my own research, and I still firmly believed in my mind that this is parasitic. Something's not right. there's so many more diseases that ticks can give you than Lyme. If you look up online, they say that if you test too early in the disease, it can give you a false negative because your body hasn't produced the antibodies yet. So in my head, I'm thinking this has to be parasitic. They can't find anything wrong. I just know that I'm slowly declining and something is terribly wrong with me, but nobody knows what's wrong. And I was just thinking this has to be parasitic. And where we live, and you guys have seen on videos as well, I'll sit down in the grass with the goats. I'm outside all the time, and we live in a very heavily tick-infested area. So part of our property back in this back portion is heavily wooded, and we also have a field in our front yard, and we have tall grass everywhere. So I was thinking like this has to be related to like ticks somehow. It's got to be parasitic. So I was doing a whole bunch of research. My friend Kristen had mentioned ehrlichiosis. Also, I was researching anaplasmosis. There's another one, babiosis, I don't know. There's a lot of different tick diseases. There's also one that I found called neurologic Lyme disease, which causes almost every single symptom that I've had during the course of this entire thing. And so I messaged my PCP and I told her that my symptoms are still here. I'm still dealing with a fever. I'm still dealing with not being able to sleep, and I have so much pain. This is what I think I have, and this antibiotic called doxycycline is what people use to treat it, and I wanted to know her thoughts on that. And instead of actually giving me a call or anything, she just filled a 2-week prescription of doxycycline for me and messaged me back and said, "Hope this helps your symptoms." So she filled the prescription of doxycycline. I took one of them that day. And that night, my head pressure was so incredibly great that I was just in tears. I actually went to my mom and dad's house because I didn't know what to do. And I was just, go to mom and dad, right? I didn't know what to do. They told me they wanted me to go see their local doctor here where we live now and maybe get set up with her and see if she has any ideas. So I went to her the next day. They got me in rather quickly. And we just talked over my symptoms and everything, and she wanted me to get a CT scan, check out my head and my neck, see if there's anything going on that is visible. And I asked her about the doxycycline, and she also said, yeah, let's just throw everything at it and just, try to take that and see what it does. So I start taking the doxycycline, and my symptoms start lessening. I think it was probably the 3rd or 4th day of taking doxycycline where I started feeling like this is working. I'm actually feeling way better. And it had been, I think, almost 3 weeks at that point. So I knew what relief felt like. Today is the last day of the antibiotic and I'm feeling much, much better. And actually yesterday I got my CT results and that's fine too. Everything looks fine. So when the nurse called me to explain, my CT came back okay. She asked me how I was feeling. She just asked me, like, how was your headaches? Which, it's been so much more than that. And it's just really frustrating that nobody's really listening or paying attention to how much pain I was actually in. They just think that I'm having a bad headache. At that point, I said, I think that the doxycycline has really helped. And I think that I'm feeling pretty normal now. So and then I explained to her that I still think that it was tick related, and then she reminded me that my Lyme disease test several weeks back came back negative, and so she didn't think that's what it was. But interestingly enough, 5 days before I got my CT scan results, I actually started seeing a rash in between where my leg connects to my groin. I'm not going to show you guys a picture of it, but it was a very interesting looking rash. There was a little bite mark, and just all around it blood vessels popped. And it's been there for almost a week now, It is slowly going away now, but I found out that if you get bit by a tick, that sometimes the rash can be delayed by up to 30 days. And by the way, all of the information that I'm telling you guys, almost all of this information came from the CDC website itself, all of the stuff relating to ticks. So where we are now is I'm just now finishing up my prescription of doxycycline. Most of my symptoms are gone. I still have a bit of a sore back of my head every once in a while, and I have very strange head pressure every once in a while. When I get up, sometimes I'll feel extremely lightheaded, and it lasts about 5 seconds, where I'll just have like pressure, and I can hear it in my head as well. And it's pressure in my head, and it feels like I'm gonna pass out for maybe about 5 seconds, and then I'm good. My muscles aren't quite there yet, but again, I was in bed for the majority of July, so my muscles are probably atrophied. So I'm trying to gain that back slowly. My back gets sore really easily, and I just don't feel, I think that I feel about 85%. 85% is probably a good percentage, I would say, back to normal. Which is why I said, like, I hope that when I stop taking the doxycycline, it continues to improve and doesn't go downhill again, because it does give me anxiety. It gives me a lot of anxiety, and honestly, like, I feel traumatized from this entire experience. I know it sounds really dramatic. Nobody really listened. Nobody wanted me to do my own research on this thing, and if I hadn't done my own research, I don't think that I would be feeling relief right now, at least not to this level. So it's been an entire, like, very frustrating process, just of people not really taking me seriously when I describe my symptoms, and just having a fever for like almost 2 weeks, and being in pain for the majority of July, and not being able to be with my animals, which are my therapy, just being in bed, and just, I'm a very active person, and so I still feel the effects of just being very depressed on all of this. So that's what happened to me, and that is my story. I still don't have a definitive diagnosis, and to be honest, I don't think I'm ever gonna get one. I think I know what it was. I think it was tick related. But again, I don't think that I'm ever gonna know for sure. And I just hope that it doesn't ever come back. I know this video was different than the rest of my videos, but a lot of you guys have expressed interest in wanting to know how I'm doing, and a lot of you have been praying for me, and for that I'm extremely grateful. Some of you don't know the power of your own words, and sometimes the words that you say make me tear up, because I have people on, like, the other side of the world even that care about me from all over the US. I have a small audience, and it's amazing to me how many of you, I feel like you actually genuinely care. So thank you so much for wanting to know how I'm doing and asking how I'm doing. It really does mean a lot. Hopefully from here on out things get better, even better, and hopefully I make a completely full recovery. I feel like I'm getting there. More rabbits, more chickens, and goats in future videos, and hopefully happy things to come from now on. I had a really crappy July, so August needs to be nice. I don't want to say I hope you guys enjoyed this video, because it's not really an enjoyable video for me to make or watch, and to be honest, I don't really want to ever talk about this again because it was so bad and it gives me anxiety. With that, I will be back very soon with more videos, more rabbits, and I will see you guys then. Bye guys.